Carter, the power Bryant. I don't know if this is confirmed yet or not, but Juwan Johnson allegedly has committed to LSU.
Let's go, Blake. Are you kidding me? Could the news have broken any better right before I jump on with my absolute BFF in all of LSU media? We get a commitment. How about that, Blake? That's some good stuff right there. Look, it's timing. It's God, man. That's all it is. It's God, baby. Let's go.
Well, it would be a massive addition. The only question I have, and you know that I've always said this isn't anything new to him. I do question guys that are athletes making that transition from an offensive weapon to a defensive weapon. Not so much like a Harold Perkins, but especially at corner. I guess when you look at him, when you see his game, what do you think about Juwan Johnson?
Yeah, there's going to be a massive leap from doing what he did at LCA, which is where, for the most part, Blake, he has been a quarterback who just goes out there and wins games, right? Put the football in his hands, and he's going to go out there and decide it for you. So athletically, with the ball in his hands, he's very good. And honestly, Blake, I know that they are the same high school, and they're not the same level of prospect, but this is going to be Sage Ryan all over again, because Sage Ryan at LCA was very similar. It was, he played some defense, but his main role at LCA was to put the football in his hands as much as you possibly can and go out there and win the game. So, yes, I am always happy when you get a top 10 player in the state of Louisiana to commit. And look, you know this better than me, Blake. You got to, put a fence around the state. And you didn't want Deion Primetime Sanders setting up shop, especially considering there is some heavy influence from LSU on that staff. So, take that away from, your thoughts on Juwan Johnson as a player. There's quite a few of you that probably haven't seen him play at all. I've personally not watched a ton of him, but just from a pure recruiting standpoint, Corey Phillips, who used to be at LSU, is at Colorado. And Corey's a really talented staffer. You didn't want him setting up shop there. So obviously it's a really good thing from a recruiting standpoint. So good job, everyone at LSU, getting this guy back on board. And once he decommitted, Blake, from Colorado, you're really plugged in. You know this. It was LSU pretty much all the way. So good news, and LSU will continue cooking, baby. 2024. Let's go.
Well, I do think that this starts a little bit of a run for them if they can start getting some of these in-state guys. Look, you've gotten Trey'Dez Green. You're really trying to get Dominic McKinley and others to lock into the state. You got probably what I believe as is the best safety right now in Deshaun McBride. And look, this staff, I'm just telling you, talking to people around the program, sources around the program, I feel really good for a guy like Tyler Singleton, also from Manning, Louisiana. Carter, if they start taking and really, because that would be locking the state down, right? Like Brian Kelly didn't really have a good chance with the Will Campbell class. This class, what can he do with the quarterbacks? I still think he got the best athletes. A top 5 class is a top 5 class. And now when you really start getting all these guys from inside the state of Louisiana, it's just a massive deal that you're able to just lock the state down, and Saban and other coaches can't come in here. I think it's a massive win.
Yeah, it is. And there is just a prevalent narrative about this class, Blake. This popped up on my live stream, and we had a debate about this last night. But look, everyone feels this 2024 crop in Louisiana just isn't as good in years past. I'm sure you've heard, basically.
It's not the 2025 class in Louisiana. I'll just tell you that right now. It's not remotely close.
Right, with Harlem Berry and all those guys, right? But look, who cares? Not every class needs to have the absolute most unbelievable players.
Let me stop you right there, because me and you, actually, you started all this, but like Saturday Down South. Okay, that whole thing that they, Vern and those Rudy Poos. So, and you're a freaking Rudy Poo. You can, buddy, you don't have 5,000 followers and you work for Saturday Down South. We have 20,000 and we're brand new. Anyway, it doesn't matter, okay? when you're able to have classes like Orgeron and none of those guys pan out, and now you're starting to see some of these guys that Brian Kelly's hitting on are already panning out. Like it's a massive deal, right? So now that Brian Kelly is into his full second class here, okay, I do think it's a massive deal that he's locking a lot of these guys down. Look, Frank Wilson, Coach Lindsey, a lot of these guys have been going all around the state. They're not missing a high school. I was told by a source they have not missed a high school inside the state of Louisiana, not because you might not have a prospect now, but in the future you will. I think that that's a massive thing. So something to pay attention to. Let me ask you this. Did you see all this stuff over the last week or so with Jayden Daniels and Pro Football Focus? They really like him as the returning quarterback. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so he did the interview today. I heard you citing it. I'm going to be honest, I didn't read it. I elected to do a film study on the tight end kid, the Connor Galbreath.
Hold on to that.
Yeah,
we're going there next.
But Pro Football Focus likes Jayden. They have posted a lot of tweets about his unbelievable rushing ability. And I think people sometimes mistake how elite of a runner he is, right? All the missed tackles, all the explosive runs, and what LSU is able to do with split zone, right? There's so many different things that Jayden does. And I went back and I rewatched the Alabama game, Blake, and you could just see the influence that the guy has on just every defensive game plan that he faces. And yeah, it's obviously really good stuff. You know, if you see Pro Football Focus really pushing him. And another player that Pro Football Focus has really put out there is Malik Neighbors. But
they put him at 7.
Right, which kind of juxtaposes some of the stats that he was one of the best ball
carriers. They had 2 guys that they put ahead of him that didn't have 1,000 yards total.
Right, and that was so fascinating to me is Malik and Jayden both last year were really good at breaking tackles, right? Normally that's a stat you just associate with running backs. But honestly, you know, Joe, Jamar, and Justin in 2019, they were really good at that too, right? And when I get a lot of questions about this, Blake, as far as, you know, film studies and all of that. Look, I am not Bill Belichick. I'm not anybody that has this massive football mind. But one thing that is consistently difficult to do at any level of football is breaking tackles. It is really hard to do that. And Jayden and Malik Neighbors and the LSU running backs last year were really good at that. I don't know exactly what it was. I have a lot of theories as to why. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. It could be strength and conditioning. It could be the design of the offense. But honestly, a lot of it's just will. A lot of it is just ability. I'm going to make you miss and gain extra yards. Josh got really good at it. Noah had some really good runs at the end of the year, breaking tackles, which was stuff that they did not do previously at their previous stops or previous in their career. So, you know, when I go back and I rewatch these games, what I want people to do, and just specifically do this, see how many tackles LSU broke last year. And it was a drastic increase from the LSU offense from years prior.
What's interesting about that, like you forget about the Josh Williams run. I know that we talked about that against Alabama multiple, but you know what so I talked to a SEC coach, you know who he is. I know that I think I've sent you some texts before that we go, and he sends me this about Jayden.
Yeah.
He said, do you remember the throw that he had against Alabama to Mason Taylor, the corner route? He goes, Blake, it's not necessarily a great read. What he's doing is he's really what everybody wants him to do is if he starts doing stuff like that, like what he did in the spring game, he virtually is unstoppable. That same coach, which, you know, comes from a long line of GOATs, also said it's the Lamar Jackson effect in a sense, right? Yeah. And I don't want to put those two guys together, but their games are so comparable. Okay. Yeah. So I do when the MVP season for Lamar, what did he do? He threw the ball down the field at a high level and trusted his guys. But he also has a potential Hall of Fame tight end, so we'll see. All right, something that's interesting that I want to get to back with recruiting. I know we talked about Juwan Johnson committing. But Connor Galbreath, tight end, offensive tackle, wants to block. I mean,
it's weird.
JUCO kid. Let me tell you what this feels like to me. You ready?
Let's hear it.
It feels like to me that they know that they found a diamond in a rough and are going to take a shot on it. Am I wrong here?
No, you're not, and it's worth it. Like I released.
Why is it worth it? You don't run 14 personnel a lot,
right? So I released a full film study on it earlier. So if people want to watch it, and I said at the beginning, this might not translate at all, but here's one thing about transfer portal data is it is harder to find tight ends. It is harder to find offensive linemen. It's worth taking risk at that position. You can be a little bit more selective at skill guys because skill guys on both sides, offensively and defensively, there is a higher number of those guys that enter the portal. So yes, it is very strange. Boot football in Northern California, way up there. It's not something that just screams SEC, and there is going to be a massive leap. And I do think it would be a massive leap for him in his current state to be a future SEC offensive tackle, but it's worth it. And his blocking form, the way he moves his feet, the tenacity, all the little things that you look for stylistically, he does have that in his arsenal. And if he is someone that is here hungry to block, the truth is, Blake, tight ends is the position needs a revolution when it comes to what we call tight ends, right? So let's say Dalton Kincaid, if you will, the first round tight end out of Utah that went to the Bills. He is getting drafted to play slot receiver. He's not getting drafted to be a do-all everything tight end, right? This guy is not Dalton Kincaid. This guy isn't Kamarion Pimpton or Jackson Gohan. This guy is a blocking tight end. Think Colin Jeter, Dylan Gordon, who may one day be able to occasionally give you something as a receiver. But one thing that's really good about that position is it gives you some value on special teams as well as an up man on a punt team or an edge guy on a field goal team. And last year, when LSU wanted to get heavy and run these heavy tight end sets, they were converting offensive tackles into tight ends. Marcus Dumerville would have to put on the number 81 uniform and play tight end. Denbrock, that's who he is. He's a tight ends coach. He loves the position. So I think it's worth it. I understand he looks a little awkward as well because he doesn't do Blake the wrist tape or the sleeves. He's barehanded. He's old school, and I like it. And I think bringing someone with that kind of tenacity as a blocker would be very nice for this room.
Jeremy Hyde said, "Future is bright, Blake," with a $4.99 super chat. He says, hashtag, but Kelly can't recruit. It's interesting, man. This class is getting pretty good. They're going to be in the top 5. And you know what's crazy, Carter, and I know this is going to sound petty from me, but I'm old enough to remember 2 years ago where everybody said LSU was drastically behind in NIL.
Yeah, absolutely. And look,
Carter, they weren't.
They never were.
They had to get things in place. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. And the truth is, if you thought LSU was paying money underneath the table, what made you think that NIL would stop things? That's always been a thing. So, yes, I'm going to ride a little bit of the petty train on that. They were never behind. They just maybe were setting things up that you didn't know about. Let me ask you this, Logan Diggs. I don't know if you saw this weekend, but we posted a picture of Logan Diggs who's holding the Heisman Trophy of Joe Burrow. Carter, what do you make of the entire damn near all the starters that aren't in Africa, I might add? All the starters offensively, Jayden Daniels included, quote tweeting that and giving the home emoji and saying stay home. What do you make of all that? And what do you think what is Logan Diggs' role on this team, do you believe?
Yeah, first thing, I am very happy that BK opened himself up for the study abroad thing. I just wanted to point that out. Travel while you can. Travel while you have the budget to do so. Going out of the country will change. Those 13 players and staffers and everything, their lives are forever going to be changed by getting
no doubt.
So yeah, it's really cool. And then also, Logan Diggs, he could do a little bit of everything. He could block. His pass protection's honestly pretty good. And look, Blake, You saw Jayden Daniels retweet you, man. That's a big deal. So shout out to you.
Well, this is what it tells me.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I know it might be a little coach pushed, because Frank Wilson's involved here.
Yeah.
And Sherman Wilson's also been involved here. But let me just tell you, this ain't all coach pushed.
No.
This is your quarterback. Let me tell you what it is. This is your quarterback sending that text and saying, quote tweet it. Like, let him know that we need him. And what's interesting is, did you read the Wilson Alexander from the Advocate? Did you read his story in reference to Armani Goodwin having a step back in the rehab? And that's from Brian Kelly. And then you have another scenario where you don't know John Emery's status. So with those two things, okay, I mean, Logan Diggs might be more than just a contributor, buddy. He might play. He's going to be the rotation of the two. So,
yeah, and I've heard all different things. I don't know what all. I mean, I've heard South Carolina. I've heard everybody. It seems like I feel pretty good about this. I hope it happens, but I will back up what you said. You don't really see like full player pushes like this too often, especially recently.
No, you know who they came with? Jaylen Brown, Taviano, right, and Shelton Sampson.
Right.
Okay. So now it's big on Logan Diggs.
And look, I really hope this happens. I like Logan a lot. I really do. I mean, he just does a little bit of everything well. He's not going to reinvent the wheel. You're not going to think you're looking at anybody like truly spectacular, but he's good. He's a really, really good, reliable.
Here's what I don't understand, Carter. And last thing I'll get.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't understand. What does he hurt you? Him being in that room, how does that hurt you? Carter's got 2 years. Logan Diggs being an LSU running back doesn't hurt you.
Doesn't at all. And look,
you know what it gives you the confidence to do? Cut John Emery loose if you need to.
Yeah, and look, I wish nothing but the best for everyone, but it does bring that up into the equation. And something else. I want to say this one final thing as far as like 2024 is considered. Big news with Georgia today. I know you saw that right earlier.
Yes.
I am so happy that LSU's got their 2024 quarterback already done. Right. Like I'm just going to give you a little.
Yeah, Carter, there's not a lot out there in this class to where you can go and get.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to bring up, right? Is recruiting quarterbacks is a different thing. They commit earlier, and just behind the scenes, it does make things a little bit easier on the staffers, right? Because now that you got your guy for 2024 reclassified, you're able to move to 2025 and hopefully get your dart throw there. Bryce Underwood, the 5-star who's visited, and I'm hearing good things about that. Once again, fingers crossed on that, but it does make things a little easier on staff because now they can divert their focus on everything else, right? Wanted to get that out there because, everyone was so focused on Raiola, and you can have your opinion about Colin Hurley. I know, Colin's been on both of our channels. We love him, but he's good. He's good. I had one independent evaluator who I trust a lot, works in dynasty, fantasy football, Debbie kind of stuff, high volume leagues. He's a big drafter. He moved Colin Hurley into his top 5.
I saw that.
And it was very, very interesting. So yeah. And that guy doesn't have any biases. So, I really like that he's already on board and we're able to work for 2025 QBs and work for all the other positions in 2024.